right, let's do this thing. I have a brand new setup here, got a prompter. It is 2025, which means I'm doing my best of media list for 2024. I love doing these lists all the time. Like last year, this one's gonna be a little bit more off the cuff. And yeah, 2024 was a really good year for me. I, made a lot of really great new friends. I went to my brother's wedding, just made a lot of really beautiful memories. And I'm so grateful to all these wonderful people that I've gotten to meet and know over the last year. But we're not here to reminisce. We're not here to think about my wonderful friends, as wonderful as they are. We are here to talk about media. And so I have once again separated my thoughts out into different categories. This year it is video games, anime, YouTube, podcast, music, and movies. And also a bonus category, because I always want to talk about just a little something extra that I really loved. Super fans of the channel who don't exist, they might notice that documentaries and TV have been left off the list this year. That is because I didn't watch enough TV and documentaries. I was busy. I watched a lot of movies, okay? So, here are some, honorable mentions for those categories if you, are desperate to get my, take on something. But again, the pool was very limited, so they're not official categories. That said, let's move on to an official categories. Video games. I played a lot of indie titles this year. I don't know why I'm clapping, but I played a lot of indie titles last year. One that I loved a lot was this game called A Little to the Left. It's like an organization puzzle game. That game was really, really fun. I enjoyed it. It was soothing. Nice to have a soothing game in your life. I also played a not so soothing game, Sifu, which I have honestly been talking about to anybody who will listen to me. It was like a beat 'em up where every time you die, you age a couple years, and depending on your age, you have different skills and stamina, right? So if you're older, you have a more robust combo tree because you have more experience, and you can hit harder because you know better kung fu, but you have a lower life bar because you're old, right? You don't have that stamina that you have as a young man. So it's really cool. It's very immersive, Sifu. Other stuff in the honorable mentions, It Takes Two, super solid puzzle platformer about divorce. Good to play, especially if you know somebody else who is good at video games. You don't have to be extremely good to play It Takes Two. I would say it's a baseline oh yeah, I like video games. If you find two people who video games, It Takes Two will work out well for you, I think. I played a lot of spooky games. I played a game called Inscription, which was beautiful and excellent and perfect. I mean, Inscription's probably the best game in this in the whole list. Perfect little title that I don't want to tell you much about because I think, it's a great game to just be oh, what is this? And so the thing about kind of all these titles is that they are, at the end of the day, kind of well known, I think, in indie game circles. But the game I want to talk about is for the you indie heads out there, because I think the indie heads missed out on this game when it came up. It popped up and then kind of fizzed out, and I never see anybody talking about it online, and I thought it was just a really good title, so I wanted to make it my number one video game pick for that reason. But the game is called Laika, Age Through Blood. This small development team from Spain called Brainwash Games cooked this title up out of nowhere. It's a dystopian bike riding Metroidvania shooter. Think Mad Max-ish, right? But plus Hollow Knight, but plus Trials for Xbox. The world is this kind of very fascinating blend of pulpy, intense, over-the-top style. You shoot the guys and they make stormtrooper sounds ah! it also has a very kind of brooding, dark edge to it. And so those two different tones collide in Laika, and I'm obsessed with it. It's the kind of stuff that I would love to make myself, and so the fact that I kind of got to just eat it up in a video game made me really excited. The main character, Laika, is a very interesting female character. She's kind of like, you know, like an old school 80s male lead in a lot of ways, you know, like a Harrison Ford or like a Kurt Russell type, because she's just gruff and pained, and she's like dealing with a lot, but she's also kind of wisecracky. She's got this sarcasm to her, and it's just something that you don't see a lot of in female leads. Like that version of a female lead is not represented a lot in media, and I think it is true to life. Like, I know women who are like that. And I think, I don't know, I just think that that person exists, and it's cool to see them represented in a video game, and I think that people would really kind of grow to love Laika. She's just like a fascinating portrait of duality in all of her actions. She's trying to raise this kid out in the wasteland, and she doesn't want to like kill their innocence, but she also doesn't want to raise a child who's just gonna get eaten up by this, you know, rough and tumble world that she lives in every day, you know, all this like hatred and vengeance. So she has to prep her kid for all of that while also keeping them separated from all of it, not bleeding any of that into them. She's like the main breadwinner for her community, so that puts a lot of pressure on her. And she's like kind of tortured by this duty that she's constantly having to perform, her own past. She walks this like very thin razor's edge through the whole game. It's just a very complicated, interesting character that I think is a banger. They really knocked her out of the park. Like, she's a great character. It's fun to drive your bike and reflect bullets back at, you know, enemies, and do a triple flip, and then shoot a guy with a shotgun, and then keep driving and do another jump where you like block the bullets with your front wheel. It's just awesome. It's a really fun, good game. It'll take you a little bit. It took me a little bit to like get used to the mechanics, because it is strange, but I think they pull it off in Laika. They make it fun, and at the end of the day, a game should be fun, and Laika's fun. Get on that one. You want to be a cool kid, you want to be ahead of the curve, go play Laika, Age Through Blood. Watched a lot of anime this year. Watched a ton of anime. You can't recommend the same anime to somebody who's never watched anime to somebody who has watched anime forever. Those are two different audiences. There's probably an anime out there for you that you will like and really enjoy, but anime fans aren't really good at expressing themselves and giving those kinds of recommendations to people. In my experience, I love you anime fans. I'm one of you. We're the same. And so if you're one of those people who's been watching anime for forever and you need like a shot of cayenne pepper to wake you up in the morning, Oshinoko is that shot of cayenne pepper. Not for the faint of heart. It's weird, it's nonsensical, it's super off the wall odd. I don't even know if it's good. I don't even know if it's good. It's like a mystery, sci-fi, mystical, celebrity, it's thing, a wake up, right? The guy who directed Ping Pong the Animation and Devilman Crybaby and a lot of my other favorite anime, I bought like the box set of his movies. If you're like a Neon Genesis Evangelion fan or something like that, I would say hop on Mind Game. Or if you're just a fan of like wildly cool and different animation, Mind Game is a good one. But you know, I watched like normal anime too. I watched Frieren for the first time. It's a show about elf woman who lives forever in like the curious mortals she meets along her lifespan. I think it's interesting that Frieren is so popular with anime fans, because in general it kind of feels like anime fans, and look, this is no shade, I love all of you, anime fans can be pretty immature. We like stuff that is made for little goobers a lot of the time, and Free Run just feels like an adult show. And so it's cool that it's super popular with anime fans. Maybe you were like growing up a little bit, I don't know. Apothecary Diaries, great show. A mystery old school China, that when the emperors were around and like had courtesans and stuff. Super solid main character with a lot of like interesting personality quirks. I really appreciated it. Also on the big stuff list, Delicious in Dungeon. If somebody was screaming your ear off trying to get you to watch anime and you only watched like Demon Slayer or like Dragon Ball or like something like that, and you were like, this isn't for me, go watch Delicious in Dungeon. Give it a chance. It just combines like so many super accessible things, right? It's like a fantasy adventure that is also just like a wonderful food show. Yeah, I watched a ton of like anime classics. I finished watching all of Satoshi Kon's work. I think what a beautiful artistic visionary that we lost way too soon. If you're not familiar with Satoshi Kon, did Paprika, did Perfect Blue. When Christmas comes around, go watch Tokyo Godfathers. You watch a Satoshi Kon movie and you're like, that was art. That was an art piece that I watched. Also, I watched a ton of Studio Ghibli movies, a lot for the first time. I was watching deep cuts. I was up in here with Ponyo. I was up here with The Secret World of Arrietty. I watched Whispers of the Heart and The Cat Returns, you know? Like, that's that real Ghibli stuff right there. I watched Porco, like, with the giant nutsacks. But the anime I want to feature in my best pick for the stuff that I watched over the last year is an anime called Golden Kamuy. I bought all 3 seasons on Blu-ray, which is hard to do because the first season is out of print. So let me show it off. One sec. We're back. So this is season 1. Oh, how you like that? Well, here's the bad guy. It's so good. He has a brain injury. And these are my other 2 seasons. I love Golden Kamuy. It essentially is like an adventure story, adventure edutainment, I guess is kind of what I would call it. It takes place during the early 1900s, right after the Russo-Japanese War, a war I didn't know existed. Out of this conflict comes a soldier, and they nickname him Immortal Sugimoto. He's the dude who will jump in the foxhole with you with holding 2 grenades and somehow come out okay. He's walking around in the forest one day, and he's trying to like figure out what his life is now that he's not a soldier, and he ends up meeting this Ainu girl. The Ainu people are the indigenous culture of Japan. Her name is a Sherpa, and she is like great at tracking things and like surviving out in the wilderness and stuff, and they end up kind of forming this unlikely bond as they search for this hidden gold. And they like have all these battles with like weird creepy guys, you know, like this guy right here. The structure of it is very fascinating. It's very chaotic. You'll be walking with a Sherpa and you'll be like learning about the world through her eyes for like, I don't know, 15-20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it will turn into this History Channel show where they're teaching you how the Ainu people used to cook up squirrel brains, right? And then after that it'll immediately jump into the head of like some random tertiary character who he just met, who you thought was gonna be just gone after this episode, but all of a sudden he's like the main focal point of the next episode, and then we're in a flashback, and then but it all flows like supernaturally. Like, it doesn't feel disjointed or weird or off-putting as you're watching it, but thinking about the plot and how it is structured, it almost gives me like Moby Dick energy with that. It's very like almost novel-like, this show. And also the characters are just so cool. Like, all of a sudden you'll have like a master thief and a serial killer and just a normal guy in the same room. And I think that's awesome. That's a cool room to be in. Last thing I want to talk about in Golden Kamuy, I think the depiction of masculinity in Golden Kamuy is really different from a lot of media that we have in pop culture today. The stuff that's in fashion right now, these cutesy, approachable, soft, squishmallowy dudes or like sickly European men who are just kind of like wafy. None of those characters exist in Golden Kamuy. All of these men are very old school masculine brawlers and like old school scotch drinkers. It's just like a lot of classic masculine forms that aren't celebrated in media right now. And I think that, you know, these things go in cycles. Everything in life goes in cycles. And I think this kind of old school masculinity that is not, you know, doesn't have to be majorly toxic. The aesthetics of this are cool. And scars and big muscles and hairy arms and like getting in a bare knuckle fist fight. That's cool. It's make chest hair cool again. That's what I'm saying. All right, I'm moving on. My YouTube consumption, I watched a lot of YouTube. I think it's fascinating. I have found a lot of people who I don't think I would have found on TikTok on YouTube through YouTube Shorts. Like a lot of like crafts people. Speed Bump Garage is one that I like weirdly am super fond of. It's like about a kid fixing up old cars with his dad. He's like 12. Lots of animation shorts in my YouTube suggestions as well. Ziploc. They make this like intensely aesthetic, just kind of like vibe pieces. Really cool characters. They feel kind of inspired by like 2000s-y PlayStation 2 graphics, but like really elevated and different. A scene kid would love Ziploc. Back in the day, storytime animation was really popular on YouTube. If you don't know what that is, that's fine, but I'm not going to explain it. I watched like all kinds of storytime animators, but I really liked these two people named Didus and Emerichu. This is like, we're talking, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. They made interesting videos that were funny and very like personal, and I just thought that they were cool. And I had fallen off of their channels a little bit, as you do. Sometimes you're on it, sometimes you're not. I knew that they like ended up dating and they moved to Japan, and all of a sudden it came across my feed that they started a channel together. They make physical media art, drawings and paintings and all stuff with like physical tools, and I love it. It's called Spilled Ink. You know, they just talk about their stories and their lives and, you know, what it's like to be an artist. They have on special guests. It's just a cool little channel that I like a lot. One of their special guests that they had on was this guy named Connor, and I thought his episode was really funny, so I went and I checked out his stuff, and I guess he had a bunch of other collabs with Didus and Emily from Spilled Ink, and then I watched a bunch of videos of him playing crane games, and I like just became a fan. I think Sea Dog VA is his channel name. His other friends, who I also really like, are Premiere 2 and Abroad in Japan. They mostly make content on Twitch, but then they cut it all up and they put it on YouTube for me to enjoy, because I hate watching Twitch streams. Just waiting around for people to like finally make a joke is excruciating. I would much rather get the abridged version, and all these guys, they make that for you. A lot of Twitch people migrating their content over to YouTube in ways that's much more consumable. I love the way Connor does it, but Connor is not who I really want to focus on, and the person I want to talk about is Ironmouse. Now, Ironmouse is a fascinating personality on the internet. She's a streamer. She loves playing video games. She's a great singer. She hosts a podcast. She hosts a bunch of like cool events. She just held like a dance contest. A lot of like typical internet stuff Ironmouse does. But Ironmouse doesn't have a physical body. Ironmouse is a VTuber. She only exists in the digital space. So what does that mean? Well, basically, using some motion capture software and a couple other devices, Ironmouse is this like pink-haired anime girl. Nobody's ever seen a picture of Ironmouse in real life. Nobody has met Ironmouse in real life. Ironmouse only exists as Ironmouse, right? As the pink-haired anime girl. For all intents and purposes, she is a completely digital personality, and I think that's awesome. Because at the end of the day, all online personalities are calculated, but Ironmouse is an online personality that is not just calculated, it's like customizable. Ironmouse is like this creative expression of who she wants to be online. It's like just like this very artistically minded way to represent yourself. And I think that that's cool. Like, inherently, it's just cool to be a VTuber, and Ironmouse is probably like one of the best ones there is. Her models are very complicated, interesting pieces of technology, a little, I would say, pretty sexual. I would say it gets a little sexual when it comes to VTubers in general, not just Ironmouse. But at the same time, like, that's the internet, right? Like, every single time there's something kind of new on the internet that's getting popular, it starts out a little horny. Like, this is true, I swear to God. When YouTube first started getting popular, it was boobs in the thumbnail for everything, right? Like, those were the most popular videos. When TikTok started getting popular, it was like sexual dances, right? And revealing cosplay. That's what was on TikTok. That was like growing TikTok's popularity. And as VTubers are coming into the space, they're this new way to express yourself online. VTubers have been around in Japan for forever, but in America, VTubers are pretty novel. And like, so, you know, having animated bazongas is part of the internet. But that's not like what you go to Ironmouse for. I mean, at least that's not why I go to Ironmouse. I go watch Ironmouse content because she's talented, she's funny, she's interesting, she's a great online personality. I enjoy watching Ironmouse's content despite the booba of it all. And also, like, she's a very resilient person, right? Like, part of the reason Ironmouse is a VTuber and not just a person talking into the camera like I am is because Ironmouse has an immune deficiency disorder. She's really sick a lot of the time, and so rather than like presenting herself to the world with a bunch of tubes and stuff, she has an avatar that she can use to present the world the exact image that she wants to present to the world. I don't want to like infantilize her for her disability or anything like that. It's not like, wow, so brave. But I think that she's honestly a very interesting creator. I think she's pushing forward the medium of online content creation in a way that nobody else is doing, right? Watch her VTuber dance contest. Like, that's cool. That is something so different. I love that Ironmouse exists, and I think the world of VTubers is only gonna get more cool, more fascinating, and more mainstream as time goes on. Like, I think Ironmouse is the future. Okay, let's keep moving. I want to talk about podcasts. I kept up with a lot of stuff that I've been listening to a long time. Chameleon is a really good podcast. They got like a show on Apple now, made out of the first season. I don't think it's the best season of Chameleon. I honestly think Chameleon has only gotten better with time. One of the latest seasons is about this sort of like FBI sting operation that was made to catch homegrown terrorist cells, but they accidentally ended up kind of creating a homegrown terrorist cell. Oh, that one's good. I like that one. Listen to a lot of like really good comedy podcasts. Love Tiny Dinos, Connor Ratliff production. So True with Caleb Heron. I can't ever pronounce his last name. I don't know how to do it. Hell yeah, brother. Love So True. It's such a good show. I love it when Brittany Broski's on there. Hey Riddle Riddle. I try not to do a lot of repeats in the honorable mentions and on these lists in general, but I thought Hey Riddle Riddle had such a great 2024 season that I had to give them another shout out. They're a comedy podcast. They do improvisation about riddles. It's funnier than it sounds, I promise. Hey Riddle Riddle's really good. The Penguin baseball episodes are like probably some of the most fun I've had in 2024. It's not the number one podcast though. The number one podcast is this podcast by Avery Trufelman called Articles of Interest. What Articles of Interest talks about is like stories from throughout fashion history. They have episodes on why women's clothes don't have pockets anymore. They have episodes about why plus size blouses always have the shoulders cut out and they have those weird little ties. What's that about? They have episodes on like why are prison uniforms this like crazy bright orange color and not the three, you know, black and white stripes that you always see in Looney Tunes. What's the deal with that? They have like a 10-part series on like why a polo t-shirt and khakis, like how did that become like this timeless thing that like everybody has been wearing since the 1940s. I love Articles of Interest. It investigates the subject of what we wear with an emphasis that's not really on like the aesthetics of it all. It's so much more about the humanity. It's about our own obsession of clothing and like how that has shaped us as a society throughout the decades. How it's this like lineage of effort of these craftspeople and companies and designers thinking about fashion, not in terms of, you know, this is just a corduroy overshirt. It's not just a corduroy overshirt. It has a history. There's a reason to why this exists. And it also just like reminds you that like what you wear is a form of expression. It's not just like a way to cover up your horrendous body. The article of interest episode on corduroy honestly like was so good that it made me I started buying corduroy. I really appreciate Avery Trufelman for kind of showing me that light. Articles of interest gives so much more context to the story of fashion than I ever considered before. You should definitely follow the podcast and go buy their book when it comes out. I firmly believe that it's gonna be a banger. Club banger. So music. Let's talk about the music of it all. Let's talk about music. Shall we talk about the music? I listen to more music than I ever have in 2024. And I know that pretty verifiably because I have my Spotify Wraps going all the way back to 2016. And I have more minutes listened to in 2024 than I have had in any year previous. Part of that was just me doing like more driving. I drove a lot more in 2024 than I have, but also I think it was just a really good year for the genres of music that I listened to. It was a great year for Vampire Weekend. It was a great year for Tyler the Creator. I went to Dallas to follow the Chromacopia truck. That was a blast. In general, it was like a great year for hip-hop. Kind of a rebirth, I think, for a lot of people. Kendrick Lamar did his thing. Denzel Curry put out a great album. Doechii blew the hell up. Love Doechii. Max has been on Doechii since like 2018 or something. So it's cool to see something my brother has been holding the torch for years get flowers like that from the general public. It was a big year for dance music and like hyperpop. I was on Brat Summer before everybody. You know, I was on that. I had bought the picture disc. But there's like also other cool people like Horse Girl. I found Horse Girl. I found Jamie XX. I found Marshall 4. There's like a lot of like wacky, insane club stuff, especially from Horse Girl. I love Horse Girl. She's a DJ who pretends that she's an anthropomorphic horse. Doesn't get much better than that. I listen to a lot of like punky, bubble grungy stuff as well. Rocky Sullivan put out a great album that's like a ska record almost in some places. Thought that was awesome. I found Snooper, who makes like the fastest, craziest songs. Martha, they put out another really great record. Please Don't Take Me Back. I thought that was beautiful. They're from the UK, this really cool band. Also from the UK is this band called Keg, and Keg is my #1 music pull for 2024. Kind of like in the vein of like a cheek face or a car seat headrest, alt pop, rock, artsy stuff, but like somehow even more chaotic than any of those examples I mentioned. Like, they're very chaotic. They have like a very cool sound. They'll be jamming you with this riff, right? They'll be hitting you with this thing, and then all of a sudden it'll be jazzy, and then all of a sudden it'll be like screaming, and then all of a sudden you'll be in this just like cacophony of sound. They're very eclectic and all over the place and very cool. It's like a groovy, jazzy punk rock roller coaster crash. Listening to Keg is a whiplash experience. It is exactly what I love. Music that is surprising, music that you can groove to, their music that like really engages you. It's so much fun. I love the song Kids. It's like a character, this obnoxious rich dad scolding his children for being just obnoxious people. I think that one's really good. Quip Quash. That one's really good. It's about basically how hard and frustrating it is to write music. You know, it's like, who even cares anymore? Presidential Walk. I couldn't tell you what it's about. But Presidential Walk was like one of my favorite like Sonic experiences of 2024. It's just like so cool and vibey and makes you feel like you're on top of the world. Like Presidential Walk. Presidential Walk. Like, it's so good. I think that Keg is super worth your time. It's probably not gonna be like, you know, they're not gonna have a Brat Summer anytime soon. It's a niche within a niche within a niche, but I think their stuff is rad. And if you want to understand me better, you should listen to Keg. Movies are the things that I care the most about in this world, and last year I watched so many of them. I got Letterboxd. It just spurred me into a movie watching frenzy unlike anything else. Go follow me on Letterboxd, by the way. I want more people to follow me over there. It feels good. It sends the dopamine up to the brain. I watched a lot of new stuff in theaters, a lot of it with my friend Vlad. Shoutouts to Vlad. I saw Anora, I saw Substance, I saw Furiosa, I saw The TV Glow, I saw Love Lies Bleeding, I saw Fall Guy, I saw Civil War, I saw The Wild Robot, I saw Dune 2, I saw the new Quiet Place. That was surprisingly good. I saw the new Planet of the Apes movie. I love Planet of the Apes. So there's just like a lot of good quality stuff that actually played in theaters this year. Just because Emilia Perez is a sack of hot garbage doesn't mean there wasn't plenty of good movies. I hate that take. There are a lot of people on my timelines giving me that take. That's not true. I also watched a lot of like my physical media collection. I own over 1,000 DVDs and Blu-rays, which, you know, and I have a spreadsheet of them all, and I haven't watched over 500 of them. So I was like, okay, I need to like, I need to watch my movies. I watched a lot of my like Criterion stuff. I watched Mikey and Nikki for the first time. Excellent character study, perfectly performed. Seven Samurai, I mean, Stone Cold classic. Pretty much 90% of the stuff that you love comes from Seven Samurai. I also watched like a lot of black movies over the last year. It was kind of unintentional for me. I started watching through a lot of Spike Lee movies because I realized that I hadn't watched a lot of Spike Lee movies. Like, I'd never seen him Do the Right Thing. And so I kind of like got into this rhythm of watching stuff with him. And then I watched a lot of stuff with Denzel Washington. And then I watched like Love and Basketball and like Jackie Brown and like a lot of other movies with all black casts. And they were very entertaining. And it was fascinating to see. It was like almost I would say it was educational for me to see how black people have been historically depicted in like recent cultural memory compared to modern cultural memory. The stories that black people are allowed to tell about themselves is very different. But yeah, I really enjoyed all my time with it. I think Spike Lee is a genius. But my number one movie of the year is not any of that stuff. It's Poltergeist. Poltergeist, baby. We're gonna talk about Poltergeist. So like Poltergeist is very classic in its setup, but in the execution, it's one of the best movies ever made. Truly. A lot of this stuff is gonna sound like cliches when you first start watching it, but just stick with it. Let me do it like this. So Poltergeist is about an unsuspecting family who moves into a new house, and all of a sudden, there's all of this, like, spiritual activity happening. There's a ghost, ooh. But the movie hits the, ooh, there's a ghost stuff in such a new and completely fresh way that I just, like, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I think it's perfect. For example, it's a family, so you know the little kid is going to be the person who sees the ghost first, and nobody's going to believe them because they're a little kid. That's not what happens in Poltergeist. The little kid sees some ghost stuff, and he's like, "Mom, there's a ghost!" And the mom's like, "What do you mean there's ghost?" The mom is instantly like on the kid's side, immediately believes them, starts investigating, and then actively like gets her husband in on it, and the husband is not like, "You're crazy." He is immediately also on this train as well. I've never seen a movie do that. Like, we are always in any ghost movie hemming and hawing and about whether or not ghosts are real, and in Poltergeist it's just like, oh, there's ghosts. Like, instantly there's ghosts, and it feels like feels like a breath. Feels so fresh and modern and different and good. And then there are like other little details. The husband and wife, Steven and Diane, they actually have a good relationship with each other and with their children. What? What? In a horror movie? In a horror movie, there's like a good, pure relationship, familial ties? It's weird. It's so weird, almost, to watch it. It makes like the horror all the more horrific because you watch these like pretty genuinely normal, good-natured people stumble into this horrific situation and get absolutely pushed to their limits. And the actors do such a good job. Everybody should see 1982 Poltergeist. Everybody. Every soul on this earth. And if you've seen it but not recently, throw that sucker back in there. Get it in the rotation. Because I think it is such a cool, interesting, good movie that does all the tropes that have worked since the dawn of the horror movie, but in a way that feels right and good and hasn't been done since. At least not to this level. And so I definitely, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Tobe Hooper. Thank you, Steven Spielberg, for your clear collaboration on this project. Honestly, it feels very Spielberg. Like, no, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Brilliant movie. But Spielberg got a lot of stink on this one. He do, and it smells good. I love Spielberg. Oh my god. Okay, let's keep going. The bonus pick. Wow, we got to the bonus pick already. That's cool, huh? I wasn't sure what I was going to do for my bonus pick this year. I thought about doing The Red Shoes. Excellent movie, The Red Shoes. I thought about doing this YouTube series I think is incredible called Ted's Caving Journal. I binged every single one of the Alien movies within like 3 days. So I thought about doing something about just like Alien as a concept. I love those. I thought the movies were great. I really enjoyed them. There's something worthwhile about all of them, even the ones I didn't like. But instead, I'm just gonna go with my gut because this is the movie that spoke to me more than any other. Porco Rosso. Essentially, it's a movie about this guy, and he's this bounty hunter in the Adriatic Sea, and he like chases down these comical, goony air pirates. They're like these guys with beards who like steal cargo planes and stuff. He's also cursed to look like a pig man. It's bombastic, it's fantasy, but not so fantasy that it's not still kind of grounded and tangible. It's sweet, it's charming, it's sad, it's funny, it's pulpy, it's Miyazaki doing what Miyazaki does best, right? Like, beautiful, gorgeous vistas, complicated airplanes that look like mythic, almost, very subtle, interesting character moments, and pure vibes. Pure good time vibes, right? And a thick boy winning. Love to see a thick boy win. I watched through like a ton of Studio Ghibli movies. A ton of them. A lot of the deep cuts. Every single one of them will actively make your life a better place. Even Porco. I felt so connected and at peace, one with the universe, after my time with these Ghibli movies. I know that's so wacky and stupid. But out of all of them, I think my favorite that I watched last year was Porco Rosso. It might be my favorite Studio Ghibli movie of all time. And that's crazy, because Spirited Away comes close to Porco Rosso. You know? Spirited Away got me into anime. It got me into this whole subculture and genre. But I love Porco Rosso. Okay, let me put it this way. I definitely like it better than Howl's Moving Castle, which is gonna piss some people's off. But I think it's great. It's anti-fascist, it's feminist movie, and it's still fun, right? It's still fun. It doesn't, like, sacrifice any heart to do that. It just is inherent to the story. He is a pig fleeing Mussolini's government who has to get his broken down airplane fixed by a bunch of women because all the men are out at war, and all of the female characters have a life unto themselves, and are fascinating characters in their own right. Like, Maria is such a fascinating character. She owns this bar. Porco is, like, obviously in love with her, but she has had life outside of Porco, like, and that makes things complicated for the both of them. The girl whose name I have forgotten, but his little mechanic girl, she is a really interesting character. She has so many interesting dreams of spontaneity and spunk to her that exists outside of the context of Porco. I love it. I think it's just a brilliant movie that is not just like a good time, good vibes movie, although it is purely that. It also has some really interesting political elements lying there under the surface, and like the themes are beautiful and really, really good. You know, so much of Porco Rosso is about like suppressed trauma. So much of Porco Rosso is about like grappling with your own inner demons, trying to figure your stuff out. Like I love stories like that, and to do that and also be fun, to do that and also be quirky and funny and beautiful is like the way that the Grand Canyon is a beautiful place. That's Porco Rosso. I think more people should watch it. If you're an anime fan, you definitely should watch it. If you're not an anime fan, you should watch it because you love me. Yeah, I think it's great. That's all I gotta say. I'm done talking. I gotta cut down so much of this. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to subscribe to me, you can subscribe, but I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you watching this little whatever it was, and yeah, I'll see you next time.